Hello everyone, and welcome to our Summer of HPC video presentation. Shiva and I have been working for the last 8 weeks on Project 2021, Submarine Computational Fluid Dynamics, and we'd like to share the progress that we've made so far. Our task was to investigate the effects of different turbulence models on CFD simulations of the DARPA sub-off submarine, also considering different configurations of the submarine and drift angles that it travels at. We do this by considering the drag coefficients of each setup and looking at the distribution of the turbulent kinetic energy. Here are the 5 configurations we considered. Configuration 2 is the submarine with all parts attached. Each following configuration is a simpler version. So what is CFD? CFD stands for Computational Fluid Dynamics. It's computational as the general Navier-Stokes equations have no analytic solutions in R3, so computers are required to obtain approximate solutions. And it's to do with fluid dynamics because we look at scenarios where the motion of a fluid and the surrounding bodies are important.
Now that we know what is CFD, let's get going on how to actually do a CFD simulation. The first step is pre-processing. Here we formulate the flow problem by deciding the objective of the simulation and how we can achieve it. Then model the geometry and the flow domain. The next step is to create a mesh for this flow domain. Here the continuous space is discretized into several contiguous finite volumes. Meshing is one of the crucial elements of a CFD simulation. To capture the flow effects close to the wall, uh, the mesh must be sufficiently refined so that there is convergence. Then we have boundary and initial conditions. Since a finite domain is specified, the physical conditions are required on the boundaries of the flow domain. The simulation starts from the initial conditions and uses an iterative method to reach a final flow field simulation. Hence, we need to provide the initial conditions as well. The solutions will depend on the turbulence model chosen. Each model has its own share of positives and negatives. So an appropriate model has to be selected for a given problem. We have selected K epsilon, K omega, shear stress transport and 2 other models to see how they fare against each other. The setup is now ready. Now the simulation has to be run. Running a heavy simulation on personal computers is not feasible. Let us see why. A typical mesh contains a million cells. Each cell requires nearly 100 operations at each time step of the simulation. Assume we have to do this over 1000 time steps. If this is done on a local computer, it would take hours or even days for larger problems. So we need to rely on high performance computers for solving CFD simulations. The CFD simulations are highly parallelizable, so it could be distributed to multiple CPUs with large amount of dedicated memory. Hence, HPC systems are incredibly used for CFD simulations. The simulation is run on HPC using interactive or batch processing and distributed processing. We have used XBatch and script for running our simulation on 2 nodes. This is a snapshot of the script we have used for the batch processing. We can also monitor the solution convergence if ran interactively. Once the simulation is successful, we gather the data for post-processing.
Here we see our first set of results. This is a plot of drag coefficient against drift angle for each of the configurations, each shown in a different colour on the graph. As expected, configuration 2, which contains all the parts, has a higher drag coefficient, and configuration 3, which is purely the hull, has the lowest. We also see this value increase as the drift angle increases, as we expected. Next, we see the drag coefficient against drift angle, but for different turbulence models on configuration 2. SST, K omega, BSL, and SSG turbulence models all give very similar results as seen here, only slightly differing at 8+ degrees. K epsilon is the only model that differs due to its handling of wall functions. Here we see both a top and side view of the evolution of the turbulent kinetic energy for each configuration using the SST turbulence model. Each simulation shown here was a simulation completed at a 16-degree angle as can be seen from the top-down view, where the turbulent kinetic energy evolves to the side at a 16-degree angle. In future, results could be compared to experimental data so as to check the validity of our results gained from simulation. More variables could be checked at different positions on the submarine to see the effects of different turbulence models, and the number of angles checked could be larger. Shiva and I would like to express our thanks to the team at Luxembourg that worked with us, especially Matthew, who helped us at every step along the way, and also the Praise organising team for organising the entirety of the summer of HPC. Thank you for watching.